Hello everybody, welcome back to Wappelville. I'm just getting things set up here. We're gonna show you what we've got going. Now, I actually have two of these things. We're just gonna try one of them here. These are some of the great eagles here, and they're from, well, now it's Middle Earth strategy battle game, but it's always gonna be the Lord of the Rings game to me. Now, we'll wait and see things with the chat. I just want to make sure that I've refreshed everything. We'll see how that works. So you can see the base is already made. There's the other one if you want to see that. And this was done with my usual bark and branch method here. We've got a couple of the GW skulls. I think we actually have a Reaper shield sitting over there. And we got tree branches. I mean, literally tree branches that were sitting out in front of my house. And I think if I show you this other one, see that pin that's sticking out of there? Basically, that goes in one of these two holes that you got over here. Now, this other eagle, he's not stuck to the tree. We're going to take him off of there for the purposes of painting him. I just wanted to see, just to get a gist of how this all looks together. Now, I'm going to take you over here, and you can see one of these in action. So this is one that I made, I think it was back in 2014 actually, and we're going to paint our eagle in a similar manner to this one right here. So I've got a couple of reference pictures up there, but you can see I'm going to go with that sort of light to dark look here on the feathers, essentially like a golden eagle. You can see we have the same skull, same bark and branch method we used on this guy, except the one that I did here, or these two, a little more foliage than that. That was more of a, I would just say a Mordor type of base here. The ones that I made, those are, we're looking at more of a, say, something more in Rohan, maybe even Arnor, whatever. Something where there's a little more growth. See, nice little close-up picture there, so that's the kind of face that we're going to have. Now let's get him taken off of here. Now if you're wondering about the bases actually were made, there was a pair of tutorials. So the first tutorial was how I made the bases, and then the second one was just me painting these guys, putting the different flock on there. You can see we've got a couple of different things here. These are from Warlord. We've got Woodland Scenics, Green Stuff World over here, Green Stuff World Vegetation. Actually, now, really wish I could do these again with some of the Luke's APS vegetation and basing stuff that I've got. And I've done some of those in recent tutorials. I'm going to set this thing off the side right here. Now, I will show you another example of bark and branch basing. This is going to be another upcoming tutorial here, but the same materials right here. This is actually a Galadriel. That's from, what, Mithril Miniatures, I think? So that's going to be another one. This is going to be having waterfalls on it, so I'm really looking forward to that. That one's going to be very nifty. Now what we're going to use on Mr. Eagle here is more of the ProAcryl transparents. Okay. Hey Dominic, how's it going? So I'm going to redo my little chat thing here and see if actually something now maybe shows up. Here, let's... Okay, maybe that'll work. Anyways, I'm not going to fool around with that too much because we got a lot to do here. And I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger. You'll be seeing a little combination of this. Think of these as essentially like the contrast paints, also like the Reaper clear and liner paints. I do have some other regular ProAcryls here, and nothing fancy as you might imagine, just some burnt sienna. Oh, hey Jan, how's it going? So I'm going to still see if I can't get that going. Well, I guess it just doesn't want to work. So we're going to show you a couple other colors that we've got here. So blue, black, pale, bright green there. We'll use a couple of those. And we've got those out on the palette. So here's some of your transparents: black, brown, red, orange, yellow. Got a green here. Got that blue, black, burnt sienna. That's the bright ivory, and there's your pale green. And we'll go with these. We just have water for thinning this down. And as usual, we just got our number 8 round craft brushes. We'll go over those as time, whatever, as we need to. Now, I don't have this on anything, so it'll be a little bit interesting for me doing glazing on this because, well, I got to hang on to it. So we'll see how this works. And he's also kind of big. Let me see. I might try and zoom out one last. Boom, like that. Now you can get a little better image of the whole thing. So we are going to take some of our transparent black and brown. We're going to start to make a few different mixes over here. So you can see we've got, that's the regular sienna mixed with the transparent brown. Throw a touch of black in there. So we got sort of a greenish brown there. We've got more of an orange brown here. Got a couple of different browns. We're even gonna do something like this, make it even more. Another brown that we can work with. Like to have these out on the palette just to be able to access those. Again, just thinning it with water, nothing fancy. And we're going to do this a little bit, like I said, along the lines of, say, some contrast paints. The primer, I'll show you that in a little bit as I maybe wait for some of this to dry here. The usual Badger Stynylrez, like I said, it's everything is kept pretty simple. But you can see we're already starting to maybe change a few of our colors here. We're going to more of that reddish brown. Now remember, we've got our makeup sponges. I'm going to grab me some of those here. Just pull away some of that. You can see just how much of that comes away. Let's do some more. Do some more here. We'll continue with our black and brown mix. Just going to utilize water. Yeah, you could use whatever flow improver, something like that, but that, to me, that is the advantage of having something like this. It's water. It's simple. You don't need to, let's say you're away from home or something like that, away from where your normal painting area is. You always have water, and that's pretty much one of the easiest things to locate usually. So you're almost never without that particular resource. So you can see the difference in the two wings here. Let's pop in a little more. Again, we'll work here with our black. And I'm going to go on the top surfaces first. We'll let those have a chance to dry. And then we'll go down to the lower surfaces there. So again, sponge over here to the main body. Like so. It would have been really fun to do these in oils. Now, see, I just grabbed a little bit of my blue-black mixed with the browns. Again, a little different change of pace on the color. And then we start to warm that up. And see, like we're doing it almost like it's a watercolor. Right? We're just letting that sort of blend together. We're not going to actually do a lot of removing of paint there. But we are going to continue this down onto the other side and like this. I wanted to make sure you could see that. Let's warm this up a tad again. Even have the two mixes together there. Some more here. Oh, what the heck? Let's go even. Let's take it a little bit further with some of our burnt sienna. What I'll do is after we do this, oh, I always like to refer to it as grunt work. After we pop out some of these initial glazes here, we'll tighten up on this, at least one level, maybe two. I may not paint every single wing on this either because, well, you see one, you've seen them both. So I think we'll also consider that. Now here's going to go even more gray because if you recall, what I'm going to do is make that a little bit bigger. And there's your beak. That's going to mix in. I'll let that mix into our feathers right there. Now what do we have claw-wise? I'm going to go less with the more yellowish claw, a little bit more with this. Same thing with the gray, this bluish gray here. We'll stick with that. So I'm going to drop my reference picture down. That's why I like to have that one there, so I can move it around, make it a little bit bigger so I can see it. And it's also there to help you guys so that you can see what's happening. I'm also going to turn up my brightness a bit once we get past this initial stage, once I get all that primer covered in. That's this right here, your Badger Steino Res. You can brush it on if you need to. You don't have to have an airbrush. I think we've still used the Badger primer for more time with just brushing it on than we have trying to airbrush it on. So you can do that. Alright, let's get our underside of our wing here. And you can see we're shifting those colors. It's not necessarily just about making it darker. It's about covering up that primer. Let's see how that goes. And we'll do some more here even on the ends of these. Look at how much darker that's getting. That's just a little glaze there. It's mostly, oh wow, at least 60% water, I'm thinking. At least 60% water. And now we're going to wander over here. We start to introduce a little bit more of that sienna as we start to join this towards the body. Just making sure. There we go. I think we've got that pretty well solidified. So you can see the difference here. Already we got some, again, some grays, some blues. I might just turn up my brightness here a shot. Maybe turn it up even a little bit more. Now the other advantage too is that you're, just like with the Reaper liners and clears, you're not going to get the watermarks. And remember when I was removing this with the sponges, you do that with the contrast paints, you're just going to quite literally rip it away, which is pretty much not a cool thing to have happen. Just doesn't happen here. Same thing with the liner paints, not going to happen. I'm just going to get to my other wing here real quick. Real quick, like. And working in more of the sienna, some of the transparent brown. What's cool about the transparent paints is that if you don't water them down, the translucency there, I just call it a dry glaze. You can actually sort of brush on the paint, and because it is, well, translucent, it won't cover everything quite the same as a normal paint, so you don't necessarily have to do it quite so watery either to get that glaze, hence the whole dry glaze term. But if you mix it with any of these opaques here, wow, the big difference. I mean, colossal difference actually. So we'll get the end of our wing here. And that's a little more of our, again, the transparent black will make it darker, but because there's all the other stuff mixed in with the brush, you see, look at that. See, we already have no fuss, no muss. We've already got some transition starting to happen here. And what's to say we don't do it again? Here, let's get some watered down black here. And as I wait for this to dry, we got an area that's dry over here. Let's play with this. because why not? And if you're wondering, the Great Eagle that you see the reference pictures of, that older one, that is as close as I could get it to just a golden eagle here in the US. So that's why the feathers sort of look the way they do. Alright, I think we've got this dry. Now let's see if we cannot finish off the rest of this. We're even going to dive into some of our blue-black here. Let's get our start at the end of our wing and work our way in. Now, like I said, those the two bases, they are part of some basing tutorials that I did. That was for the Patreon page. It's one of my pledge levels, actually, is just, it's all about basing. Now, of course, the Army Painter pledge level, well, that just gets you everything. Actually, I keep saying 200 hours, but it's really closer to 300 now. There's just that many videos. There's that many different videos. All the different army painting series. Let's see, how many Lord of the Rings ones do I have now? So the Haradrim, I think that makes 4. Oh, what is it? The Dol Amrod, that's going to make 5. There's going to be a ton more. So look at that. Just no fuss, no fuss. How long have we been messing around with it? 15 minutes. That's 15 minutes. And some people would say, well, throw little highlights on there and it's done. So that's a little bit like what the contrast paints tell you to do, right? Slap it on quick. But here, I could just do all kinds of color changes. Lots of different color changes. Now, I'll take a quick gander at my reference over there, and we're gonna jump in one step closer now. And you can see that. I'm gonna bring my chat back up over here in case it ever works or whatever. But we got these other colors over here. Let's not forget those. So look at that. Get some orange over here, so we're going to make even more different colors of browns. We got some really warm browns that are happening over here. Let's grab another one of my brushes here, and let's see what happens when just a little bit of that lighter color works its way in. Now, I think that's dry enough now for me to hang on to. And look at this. That's just with the addition of a tiny bit, the ever so slight touch of that bright ivory completely changes the color that we were using to shade this darker. All of a sudden now, it covers the ProAcryl paints. It's an interesting dichotomy when you use, and we're going to get a cooler version of this here. There we go. Let's get a little more of that bright ivory in there. Let's make sure this is close enough for you, and then it gets sort of in focus there. Now let's get rid of some of the excess. A little bit of that excess there. You have this option of super great coverage, or when you go to the translucence, way less. Or you do what I did and you combine them, and now you have sort of a little bit of each. And the other thing too I want to stress is that while this looks lighter, look at how that looks on the palette. Look at this compared to that bright ivory. That tells you just how far we can push this now. So this has a little bit more of the yellow in it. A little bit more of the yellow, and that's something you want to do here is just be sure that you vary that color as much as possible. Now, the transparent paints, I'm thinking there's 8 colors. Obviously, contrast paints, you got what, 34? They may have added some since the original release last year. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But you saw that I was able to mix these. Now, if you've seen any of my other tutorials, you know that you can mix the contrast paints just fine. I think I've only ever used 13 different ones, maybe 14, because they lent me a few of those to use. See, look at this. That's changed our color here a bit, and I'm going into my cooler browns. That's more of a grayish brown we just grabbed. And we can certainly go lighter than this without a problem. See, once this dries, I can go back into here. And we can obviously use smaller brushes also, but we're still in a early beginning stage here. We're just trying to set the stage for stuff that's going to happen later. How's about some more of this grayish brown here? And you can see the initial glazes, they're still drying, and I'm already into my starting to add some basically mid-tones to the feathers. I guess you can kind of consider it like that. Now I'm going to look at, yeah, so I'm going to keep this darker here. I like that, almost like a darker mane. But for the face, let's make our face a little bit larger here. Let's get some of our grays here on that beak. You can see even there, the initial glazes are still in the process of drying. You can see the difference just a little bit of that. Look at how much lighter that is. But I can also wet blend that a little bit. Remember, it's not about just taking one little section of it and painting it till it's done. We're working on the entire figure all at once. Let's go a bit, again, darker on that. And I'm just going to let these blend together. Going to have some of that happen here too on the beak. Now, I grab some of this. See, that's a little bit more yellowish here. We're going to make it more opaque as well. Now, let me just get a chance to play with Mr. Focus. And we're going to start to work in some lighter tones here on the face. They're lighter. They're a little bit also too on the warmer side. Here we're going to walk this over into some of these feathers here. I think I've got, oh gosh, I got a couple of the original Painting Pyramid episodes too. Those are on the Patreon page. There's one where I'm painting. Actually, the eagle is out of print now. It doesn't exist anymore, but I used it as my here. If you check out the blog, which is probably going to be scrolling across the screen in a couple of seconds there, that's where you can see all kinds of posts about finished miniatures. There's a ton of tutorials there also. But you want to see the things like army boards, stuff that's really not necessarily convenient to do, say, on Instagram or whatever. So again, we're just going to start to lighten this up. We're going to even let that mix into some of the existing colors. Let that sort of wet blend itself. when people, I could just imagine some folks, they're going to do this. But, oh, hey, Trevor. Yeah, I don't know what's YouTube's just doing a thing. It's the chat absolutely not cooperating whatsoever. I'm going to try it again and see if something happens. Nothing there. I'm going to do that again. So yeah, we get nothing from that either. It's just going to be one of those kind of nights. Was a couple nights ago, that all worked fine. Didn't have to do anything. Tonight, doesn't want to work. I mean, it's one of those things where I almost more expect it not to work than to work. And I looked for all the updates too, and I didn't see a single thing. It said there's nothing that needs to be updated, so not much. Only so much I can do. It's whatever YouTube is gonna let me do. All right, let's lighten this up. So again, we want to get a little bit of that yellow in there too. That's the transparent yellow. Going to get over these brows here. Like I said, we will go with smaller brush too as we work our way into some details. I want to see what's happening. See, even on the leading edge here, I thought I had some brighter colors there. They're not just lighter, but see how they're warmer? See how that yellow, you got red over here? We're going to carry that over too. Here, let's get some of that onto this side now. So why I like to have the palette laid out like this, because it's just going to let me see, I can sort of blend as I'm going here. I can almost do it if I feather out this brush stroke. It's not a dry brush. I mean, you can see how wet the paint is, but it's a much more flexible way of going at this. I have all my colors out on the palette. I wasn't looking for just the right brown or just the right whatever. I just made my own. And people say, well, yeah, that's because you've been doing this for 40 years. You know how to, I even don't even like color theory, that word. I sure as heck don't like color wheel. But they say, you know all that stuff. Well, okay, yes, but getting different types of brown by just tossing in a little more yellow here, a little more of this there. It is definitely something that folks can just try. Now, are you going to maybe do it at the same proficiency? Oh, at least I got to paint some skin tones, so that's right, your Monday session up there. Here it was raining, of course, after being, well, pretty much 5 degrees or so. A much more pleasant temperature for a few days. That went away. I've been wanting to just get to these guys here. It's going to be a while before I can start up my Galadrim army again. And like I said, see that blogspot.com address right there? You want to see what the Galadrim army looked like? Well, go over there. You'll see the army board that I made for him. You'll see the Bilbo's Bash tournament where I took those. You'll see the practice games. Oh, that's the other thing I'm actually been working on too. And it's a test format. It's a test of a new type of battle report, basically using still photography as opposed to trying to film it. Because, well, first of all, I wasn't home here, so that I didn't have access to all my usual equipment anyways. But filming Lord of the Rings is, of all of the games, Lord of the Rings is probably the toughest, because what happens, and it certainly happened in that game, you get that scrum, big old scrum, everybody's all mixed together, and once you start trying to film that, you can't see. Once that stuff is moved in there, you can't tell who is who, who's fighting who. So what I did was I took some pictures from different angles, especially some that were closer, with the notion that I could actually put them up on screen here and actually use something called whiteboard and actually basically do like it's at a football game or a hockey game or even a baseball game and just telestrate what happened. So drawing some lines and okay, and there was a heroic action here, we had a charge over here, we had a heroic fight over here. So I think it gives me a little bit more control over the action. So again, you can see we've got our reference picture to the left, and over here to the right we're looking to start to match that. And all of a sudden, see the beak starts to maintain more of that grayish look to it. Now, actually, I'm just happy that apparently there must be sounds coming through my mic because somehow it got under my foot and I actually stepped on it. Now, let's do this side now. Right along here. Now, I don't want to get trapped into this area too much here because we want to obviously be working on our wings. But I figured people might really enjoy seeing this, so I thought I'd really focus here and spend a decent amount of time on this. We'll get into our grays too for the beak there, but that's now on the top of his head. And look at, see, because we're using that translucent paint, look at how there's really no texture there. That's just me painting in feathers that don't actually exist, because I think I just had to sort of file that away pretty much. So we're starting to get a nice sweep to the face there. Let's do a little bit on that leading edge. Now we'll go back over here. We're going to go to that somewhat warmer color here too. So I'm going to shrink this reference down here. Give me a second. And we're on the left wing over here. We're just going to try and hit some of these. And like I said, check out the palette, and you can see that the color that that's put over these feathers, it looks lighter, but boy, it sure as heck is not that much lighter. It's a dull middle tone at this point. So let's get some more feathers here. And not doing this in dry brush fashion. We're just being real gentle with the brush here. And that's the nice thing about these big old synthetic craft brushes. They got soft bristles, but they still have some resilience to them. And if you do a little gentle brush stroke, you can put some nice feathered tones over the top of that. Now let's get into some grays here now. Try and get some darker stuff going on in here. Just give me a second with that. Same here. Now we've got also some of the pale green there, so that's also gonna create some cooler colors. Let's go over the top here. I'm gonna make that face reference bigger here again, like so. Let's get some reflected light there. Same thing over here. Now I don't want it to be blue necessarily, but it is, I think of it as a semi-reflective color in a way, so we're going to hit the top of this now. That should really make a nice dramatic difference there. No, just using some pale green for this kid. It's kind of an it's kind of a natural, really, when you want that human skin. I want to get that little bit of gray in there, right? Well, it's just perfect for that. I'll work in, get some more of that here, and let's go with some more of that pale green here. And you can see this is nowhere near white, but boy, the impact that's going to have, it's like I've just put white there. But it's not, definitely not white. Now I'm going to see what I can do here with some of these talons, and we'll throw some glazes onto these also. It's not a matter of, well, we're going to work from light to dark or the other way around. It's sometimes I'm working dark to light, sometimes at the same time I'm working basically both ways. Just get a little bit more of our lighter gray. I'm going to try and sneak in a little bit of yellow there, believe it or not. Now, where's some of my, looking for a smaller brush here. Just give me a second. Let's get something that's a little bit more towards orange here for the eye. Now, you can see it. I just want to make sure that I can see it. I'm going to work in a few. Actually, let me see if I can't. I don't know if it'll let me. Oh, yeah, I can go one closer. That's cool. I'm going to let myself have a few shots of that orange color onto the feathers. Let's do the other side here now. It's going to be tough for me to... Right, there we go. Can finally get my hand in there now. So again, our start now. We got some orange for the eye, and then we're going to work in some on the feathers here. And you can see the difference that just a little bit of that opaque stuff makes. I mean, my goodness. It's just a huge difference. Now, this has a little bit more of the yellow in it here. A little bit more of the yellow. I'm using pretty much the same, this kind of subdued brush stroke that I used on the wings with the bigger brush, but now with that smaller brush. That's how, yeah, okay, so back here is where we got a little lighter with it. Not so much there right along the face. And as always, I can glaze things a little bit darker if need be. So I'm going to turn you around. All right, let's go back to my lighter yellow here. Good. I think you can see what the heck I'm doing there. And there's going to be glazes back the other way. Not necessarily just me taking, say, the transparent black and making it darker. I might even go in there with some greens. It's those little extra things that you do with those colors that are really going to make things stand out. Now, we also need to, here, let's get this part of the eye right here. Just gonna move it up so you can see it. Gonna do the same thing on the other side. Yet we haven't done that yet. We'll do it here. It is pretty wild to see the two of these guys side by side, the reference and what I'm working on. Oh, somebody's being sneaky and cheeky at work. I'm glad you're able to catch this one here. I've actually, well, you have seen the two basing tutorials on this already. Now you're finally getting to see the birdies being painted. There's two of them anyway, so second one will probably just be another Patreon video. The wings on that one they're inverted in a different way. It would have been really tough. Really tough to try and get that one on screen here. So I'm looking to get some darker tones in here, just like what we've got on our sample photo. See, that's using the transparent black. Just took some water, thinned it down. Took that water, thinned it down, and now, see, we start to darken some things here. Now I want to do, okay, so we're going to use some of the sienna, some of that orange. See if we can shade this eye a bit. Just on top, right there. So you can, it's almost like it's a gemstone. A little bit like a gemstone. Now it even stands out a bit more from the feathers around it. Do the same thing over here. Now, just like we did on the other side, let's see if we can't glaze in some darker tones. I'm taking some of that. That's that blue-black. And again, that reference picture, when those are up there, they're obviously for you guys, but they're also for me. I kind of need those there. So I know there's folks that have, I think that was maybe just something that happened during the whole contrast paints craze. But if you are not a fan of the reference pictures being up there, well, there's not a whole bunch I can do about it, because I have to know what I'm working on here, because I have to match an awful lot of things, and that's sort of part of the lesson too. Let's see if I can get, so can you see the eye that I just put in there? I'm gonna see if I can maybe kill the brightness a touch, and I might throw some more of my transparent black out there too. We used quite a bit of it in our initial stages there. Now I'm going to grab some of this, not some of that grayish blue, but when it's mixed with some of the oranges, then it starts to turn a bit on the green side. So I promised you some green in the face, so we're going to do that too. See how that sinks down into those crevices? So makes it a little bit more interesting than just, oh look, a darker shade of brown. No, now it's actually got some more life to it. Now let's see if we can do some stuff here with our feathers on his chest. Maybe even start to think about, instead of just treating these like they're scales, as in flat pieces, maybe now I start to think about some of those individual feather lines. And all it takes is just, all I'm going to do is just keep adding some of that lighter color. And a little bit more of that lighter color in there. Now what was the video that I was just, oh, it was the Dark Sword video that I just did last night. Sadly, I think the miniature, no, I think I did bring the miniature into here. That one took essentially the same couple of colors, but I was changing, I think one I was lightening it with the faded ultramarine, and then I took that same color and lightened it with a different opaque light and got a really different result, which was really cool. And it was the same, I don't know, I mean, it was just transparent brown or something like that. It was just the one root color, I guess we'll call it, was the same. And then I just changed that, the lighter color that I was mixing it with. So see, look at what we got now. Now you start to get some more of that. Alright, so I'm going to bring up my brightness here a bit more. And see, we get our chat so I can look at that. Now we're back to some of our pale green here. And that looks so intensely bright. But it's really not. It is really not, because we can go much brighter than that. But for now, we're choosing not to do that. Here, I'll mix some of that with some of our ivory. Let's see if we can do the dot in the eye thing there. I'm going to maybe water this down just a touch, make that flow a little bit better. And there. So I'm going to take this picture, we're going to reduce that, get that out of the way. And we're actually going to throw some more of our black out here. Before we do that, though, we're going to take some yellow here. We're going to mix it with the ivory. And let's get this closer to the screen here. Again, like a gemstone, see it darker on the top, and as the light goes through, the light's kind of passing through that. So again, more of a gemstone look to it. And again, going to bring in some of my lighter tones here. Try and get some of these smaller feather textures in here. Like I said, there's sort of some texture there, but let's try and bring that out a bit more. So I think, yeah, I can kind of see what we've got going on with the eyes. Obviously, with something like this, you definitely want your face to be the focal point of the whole thing. Because it's more than just the miniature. There's the base that he's going to be on. Now, I really doubt we're going to be sticking him on that base by the end of this thing. So, maybe. I just kind of doubt that. Because it's going to take some handling, and heck, I don't even know if I've got the room underneath the camera to do that. Alright, so as we did on the other side, let's get this where you can see it. Let's start to work in some darks here. like so. And now for that eye, this is pretty much what I would do with, oh, I would say a mix of what, brown and blue liner if it was the Reaper Clears. So again, we've got our eye there now. I'm going to see if I can make myself a crazy little sort of a purple type color here. Look at that. I just took that gray blue, mixed it with the red. Now we've got ourselves almost a little bit of a purple. You can't really see it too well. It's just the way the beak is pointed. You really won't be able to see that too much. But I just want to get that in there while I can. Here, I'm going to even use the pale green to lighten that up a touch. Oh, how's about a bit more? And we'll go a touch more. Oh, now you can see it. Now I'm going to, once again, go into this, that sort of blue-black, using the pale green as well. Get myself some, a sort of a reflected light there. Kind of reflected light-ish. Gonna get some darker tones in there around that his tongue. Maybe even a few darks here, and some of these feathers. And even up here. It's, in some ways, it's a bit like it's non-metallic metals. Here, let's get some of this gray over here. Now, I've actually done 2D art of eagles quite frequently over the years. I don't know how many times I've done paintings of eagles. So it's fun to actually get to paint one in 3D for a change. And I'm fairly certain, yeah, you can go to the blog and probably see some of those. There we are. I'm going to try and get some, a little more of a gentle transition on the highlight that's on his nose there. Again, I realize that not all of this is the easiest for folks to see. Apologize about that, but it's kind of an unusual shaped miniature, to say the least, to be squeezing on screen. There's a little more. Let's get some of this gray, just like we did on the other side. We're going to have some of that gray work its way back into the face. It's going to give it just more. I mean, it's almost like, think of it, the depth of field on a camera, right? And instead of just, well, everything is in the super sharp focus, well, the background sort of gets a little bit more muted, right? And your foreground really jumps out at you. That's what happens when you allow yourself to, the one wing is getting caught on the palette cam. Yeah, let's get something besides oranges and yellows here. So this is my original glaze mix there. We've mixed a bit of the pale green in there. And as before, we're going to just stipple in here kind of our own feather texture. Gonna go right in this area over here. I think you can see it. Boy, it's going to be a long time before I'll be able to actually use these guys. Speaking of those battle reports, it's going to be a long time before I'll get to use these in a battle report, because I still have to get myself some not Haradrim, some Galadrim elves. Sadly, that was an army that I had to sell off back in the day. I didn't really want to, but sometimes when you need to pay certain things, you just have to get money from other sources. So eventually the elves, they'll rise again, and they were kind of a favorite of mine. What I like to do is have one of my eagles there. It's a Stormcaller. His role was to be like a pro bowler and just knock guys down. I just wanted him prone. Then the cav would charge the prone guys to get that bonus, and then the eagle, who could actually fly over the batch there, would then sort of jump on top of them and whack them from behind and make sure they at least that they stayed down, if anything else. Especially with the whole monstrous charge thing, and I mean, it was even more devastating on cavalry, that's for sure. So it's one of the things I have to make sure that I don't do is collide with the talons here, because that's what it wants to do. So yeah, I'm looking for a bit more reflected light there. Let's try and get some of that same reflected light over here. And I want to get me some gray up here too. We're sort of layering our midtones. Underneath this is all that warm stuff, so just a few little touches of that gray is going to have a big impact. Really big impact. Okay, back to here to try and really get that to be nice and shiny, like our reference picture there. Now let's play with the talons a bit, and I'm gonna go with. So this is just the transparent yellow here. And look at this. Now watch as I just sort of add some of this here. This is what I meant by a dry glaze. Now if I add any opaque to this, it's going to be a very different animal. It's a whole different thing. But right now, see, I just wanted to kind of tint it towards more of a yellow. And nope, your computer is not upside down. That's me turning this over. So like I said, this is one of the things that the transparent paints will let me do. I mean, look at this. Okay, we got the face here, right? Now let's say I want to sneak in some more. Look at that. So I can warm that up. There's no water on this, but it's just some of that paint. That's all it is. It's that transparent yellow. Now you know why I went in here and hit the talons with basically that gray, because I knew I could come in here without a whole lot of fuss and just brush some of this yellow over the top. And yeah, it makes it a little lighter, but the most important thing is it starts to tint it towards yellow. Can you imagine how long it would take me to sit here and sort of do this step by step, layering that endlessly? That would be a pain. Like a lot of a pain. A great deal of pain that I just don't need. Don't really think you need it either. There's some more yellow there. Let's flip this over here. Oh, you can see that side of his face now. And what all I did was add just a tiny touch of that more opaque lighter color, and boy, the difference that makes. We're going to get some of that onto these feathers here. Now I need to, wow, look, it's just, man, that wasn't, that's actually the kind of the dough mix that I was using to almost get some mid-tones on the face. And look at how light all of a sudden those get. But it's a little feathery brushstroke here. I know this is nothing terribly exciting to look at here, just me painting the undersides of the eagle's feet. Gotta be done though. Well, now you get to see his face again. And then we're going to take some of that same, get some of that same yellow here. Then we're going to work that out into the, right into here. And then we're going to go into our smaller brush again, and we'll, here, let's work with some feather textures here. Now that's going to be too light, too fast. So I've got my orange over here. Let's do some feathers here now. A couple more. No, I don't want to dive in. I am going to go and grab some of that gray again, tone this down. And you got tons of small feathers over here. They start to get a little bit bigger as they work their way out. But I'm probably also going to do some darker glazes here. I don't want it to be just about adding lighter colors. Sometimes, well, if you want to have light, sometimes you've got to have dark. And there's nothing that says, well, you can only do those initial glazes and no more glazes after that. I mean, you can glaze, you can layer, you can glaze over the top and then layer again, and whatever it takes to get the result that you need. That's what it's all about. And for the folks that haven't seen it already, I'm going to grab, in a second here, I'll grab the bases that go with these guys. And there's two of them. Where's Mr. Base? Here he is. So that is, here's his base. Already got confused with the two. So there's his base. You can see he's got his little, that little pin right there. That's going to hold him onto the base. And what I'll do is I'm going to take some of this foliage here and we'll put it over that, so that where, if you see it, that will cover it. If you can, I'll go back to my blog post again that shows how they actually work on the base. But yeah, that you can see in the lower left and right hand corners, you can see a little bit of what those looked like on their actual bases, or the first one I should say. Now this is almost, let's go back to Trevor and his skin colors. Well, I just mixed the pale green and the burnt sienna, and all of a sudden it's kind of like we had ourselves some skin tone there. I'm just trying to change up the color, make it a little bit warmer. Just a little bit warmer. Because we got some gray, we got some yellow. Now this is going to make it also a touch more towards the red. Let's work this back over to his body again here. And with that now, let's see if we can't go over to some of our, a little bit of a glaze here. So we're taking that, the transparent black, the transparent brown. Let's go even. Let's just do a touch darker here. Over the top of that. And again, the handy thing that we can do here is we can grab our makeup sponge, take some of that away, and now those lighter colors that we added, those start to show up. Didn't have to necessarily, see, I don't have to necessarily highlight every single one of those. But then we get some more variety in there. We got some more depth to our shadow areas there. And this is simple glaze over the top of that. Now, I'm actually going to mix in a little bit of green together with my, that's transparent green, transparent black, and I'm going to hit a few of these talons here. So we'll do those three, and then what are we going to do? Boom, boom, boom. We take the paint away, and it starts to reveal some of the lighter grays underneath there, and then we can go back in with that same lighter grayish blue that we did in the beginning, right? And do the same thing on the talons that we did on the beak for the most part. Speaking of his beak, I will add just a touch of that there. Turn you around. Let's do the same over on this side. This is that the dry glaze that I was telling you about. It's a little bit in reverse because we're darkening here, whereas before on the feet we were sort of lightening that with the yellow. Now we're going in the opposite direction here, trying to darken this a little. See, boom, boom, boom. Isn't that a whole lot easier doing something like that than messing around? Yeah, let's get some of our gray again. And now, see right there on his talon, it gives those. Now we could also do the glossy stuff. I could take some kind of water effects or art code or something like that, put that over the top also. Just bear with me here. I'll hit those, and now this is where we can really get some separation here. Just trying to steady this. And right here, just about the same sort of location where we put it on the beak, and of course the talons are sticking to my glove. So see how now we've got that lighter thing working right there? Same like we did right there on his beak. How's about we do that on these talons now? So look at the shiny that we've got going on the talons, on his beak. I think you can even, yeah, see how the talons have the same hook as his beak. So why, and they're basically sort of on the black type of side, why wouldn't they have the same thing going on that, say, the beak does? Sorry, my microphone just keeps getting caught on things. I apologize for that. This is just one of those days, and that, well, I'm sure the vast majority of people have never tried to do any kind of live streaming or anything like that. But when you have, there's sort of that code amongst streamers where you just, oh, what is it, streaming happens, where just the stupidest things conspire to make it about as difficult as possible for you. Now, you can see I just added a few more little light areas, and geez, I got a long way I can go with that, but I'm just taking that transparent yellow. We're mixing a little bit of white with it, And we're just doing a few little dots of that here. I'm going to see if I can't reach over here and do the same. There we go. And how's about some more over here? And feel free to ask any questions you want. Like I said, I try and do these things for folks that, well, maybe you won't even attempt one of these things here because it seems too intimidating. There was a point, geez, since this is sort of the 20th anniversary of us starting to do the miniature painting thing, there was stuff that I wouldn't have even wanted to attempt 20 years ago, wouldn't have even known how to do it. It's one that you just kind of, sometimes learning the hard way is the only way. Ooh, now that is t-shirt worthy. Somebody's got to remind me about that. Boy, I need to write that down. If anybody's listening to this, Bethany, if you're still tuned in, write me a message or something. Write me a message, and that's got to be, well, we already know what sort of chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the Book of Wappel are. Man, that's got to be at least in the top 4 right there. Now this is almost, it looks yellow, but remember it's darn near a green. I mean, if you could see that compared to, look at that over there in the corner. I'm just shifting the palette around there so you can maybe see it. Some people, if they were to see that, just a jar of paint, it would be labeled some kind of, almost like a dirty green. As I've already forgotten the phrase that I just talked about. So I'm going to lighten that up a touch here with a little bit of that. Again, that's the bright ivory. Now, I went a little bit further on the face for a couple of reasons. Probably not something I would have done if it was just me painting this, but that was for you guys. Because I don't think I'm going to be able to do a 4-hour live stream. Now, fortunately, and all things are relative, of course. It's relatively early here at 3:27. Again, just trying to work in some of this crazy. I keep calling it yellow, but it is virtually green. It's sort of like with when we do the metallics and such, and we got the purple next to. Oh, Bethany was on a cut. Oh, it was. Oh, what was it? It was. The only way to learn things is the hard way. I believe something like that. Or the only good lessons are hard lessons. Actually, that's another one too. What the heck? That'll be like chapter 4.3 or something. Because a lot of the lessons that we learned, I mean, over the course of 20 years, the vast majority of lessons were hard lessons. I just learned stuff about YouTube, and this is from a person who has listened to at least probably 70 hours now worth of YouTube training tutorials on all the different aspects of YouTube, from algorithms and titles and end screens and cards and annotations, you name it. Today I basically went, okay, there's that too? Okay. Now, of course, YouTube keeps adding things and changing things. That doesn't help. But I had no prior knowledge of this aspect of YouTube, which meant I spent about 3.5 hours today just working on that. So if you notice, if you go back to maybe watch some of the live sessions and there's a different title on them, well, there's a reason for that. Actually, I now have what would you call it? I now have a playlist with just the live sessions in it. That took an hour and a half just to do that. So if you just want to see these live sessions here, because obviously they're interactive, people ask questions, but if you're just curious about them or whatever, and I try and do a couple of these a week. So what the heck is today? Well, basically it's Wednesday for me. I would gather that either Friday or Saturday. Now I will try and do the Twitch thing, and if anybody is interested with the Twitch, now that's somewhere where you can maybe do longer streams, right? 4, 5, 6, 24 hours, whatever. So that might be something. Just Wappelius on Twitch. That's it. Same thing. I see the not the Patreon thing is, well, that's just James Wappel, but the Instagram, the blog, that Wappelius thing there, you can. What is that? How does it Twitch call it? You follow me on Twitch or whatever. Whereas here, and we've already talked about it, you subscribe and you hit the all notifications bell. Now, of course, what that's supposed to do is give you a notification when I'm live, of course, unless it's tonight, when apparently it doesn't do that. But then that's just YouTube being YouTube, I guess. So get some more of those feathers. Just trying to carry this outwards here. And like I said, it is still essentially a middle tone at this point. There's no bright highlights in this anywheres. Oh, I'm gonna toss a little bit of that into there. So yeah, my lights kind of get in the way. Oh, you learn more from your mistakes than you learned from your successes, and all that. I mean, it is true because, well, when something goes haywire, unless you're, I don't know, have a keen liking of things going wrong, you say, well, that's not happening ever again. And you will do whatever you can to not have that happen again. I mean, it's the proverbial touching the hot oven of miniature painting. And we've kind of all had those moments, and we all will. Especially if you're trying to experiment. Now, if you're never experimenting and you just do the same thing over and over and over again, well, your failure likelihood or rate or something like that, that's going to go down. But your boredom rate is going to go sky high. Because I've seen it so many times where people just, they only do their same thing. They find something that works, and that's great, but they stick with it for so long that eventually it's boring now. It becomes like, yes, there's movies that we can watch 20 times and still enjoy them, but we'd still want to watch some new movies or new TV shows where we don't actually know every line and the ending in advance. That's kind of what happens when you're just basically not trying to innovate, at least for yourself. Now look, remember what we did on this side here with the gray? I'm taking some of that gray. That's going to go down into the crevices of those feathers right there. It's going to go down here where these ends are going to join together. Yeah, that's really fun. I enjoy that. Here, I'm going to try something a little bit crazy here. So we're taking almost like a turquoise here. We're mixing it with that. Great. Look at what it looks like on the brush. That's hilarious. I'm going to throw some of that onto the beak there and say, what in the world is a turquoise green doing on his beak? Well, it's not doing much because most people won't even be able to tell that's what it is. Except that when they look at it, they say, wow, there's some really nifty colors and some. It's sort of we're working in some sky colors almost. I'm also thinking about that base, which has tons of green foliage in it. So actually working in some green into his feathers and his beak, especially a reflective beak. Why not? All right, we're going to continue. We're going to go to the other side here. We're going to continue this. And bringing out some of these feathers. This is the sienna color with some of the pale green, which, well, basically like Trevor was using earlier, making almost a flesh tone out of it. Look at that. That's kind of a nifty flesh tone right there. But at some point, I've got to move away from this more reddish color like this and then go over to the yellow. Just like I did on the other side, I will take that sort of grayish blue and we'll go down into the crevices of these feathers here. But first I'm going to lighten this a tad. Just like that. We'll continue out onto these feathers here. Now I could do that as a glaze, like what I did on the other side, where I just sort of, well, in an opaque fashion, just sort of brush that on. But I really do enjoy, I guess it's because of working with the Reaper clear liners, is that I really enjoyed just sort of brushing at it instead of it always having to be a glaze. Alright, so we talked about the getting things more yellow. We're going to try and do that here. So it changes over from more of a reddish to now more yellow. Might change back to something more reddish again. There. Let's go. See, I can go back to the red. It's all just sitting right there. It's all right there on the palette. Also not going to lighten up every feather equally. And you can see you've got these layers of feathers. Some are, well, for all intents and purposes, higher or lower. Let's go out here a little bit further. What the heck? And gonna grab some of that gray color there. So I'm really gonna focus in on this area for you guys because it brings in the face. While I could do the other flip side of the wings and just paint a bunch of stuff like this on the flip side of the wings. I think that would get real boring real fast. But there's also not the context. So here I'm trying to use these to bring you towards the face. It's a thing with 2D art that was just, it gets drilled into your brain. Oh, let's grab a little bit of this here. That you have to bring the viewer into your picture. Well, we sort of have to bring the viewer into our miniature. Now remember, the base is doing that too. And I'll bring that back out here in a second. But this all went from just nothing but primer, hour and 15-ish minutes ago, to something where the face is painted, pretty much the talons are painted. And we've gone real far. Gotten a lot of stuff done on this boy in just an hour and a half. So yeah, that's the pale green right in there. See, now we can start to bring out some of these feathers a bit. But I'm not going to forget the yellow over here. So we went back into some yellow. Especially on the leading edge here. It seemed to be not a bad idea. Did that on the other side. And it looks so light here because we were really successful. Look at how light that it seems to be. But it's not. If I was to put any kind of a white next to that, you'd be blinded by it by comparison. It's all about context. That's why I try to get people not to do the whole black primer thing and just paint one small area of it. And anything next to black is going to look light. Remember, this shading here, to me, didn't seem very dark. I said, man, yeah, maybe I need to even hit that again. I realized, well, no. Because, like I said, barely a middle tone here, and it looks like a highlight. I mean, it really seems like a highlight. So a bit more here. Oh, what do we got? What have we here? Gonna bring in some of my... Now this is a little bit lighter, so you can see that one feather there that got some... like that. So see what we're doing? We're just bringing a few of these textures. Before we continue too far with that, we are going to go now in the opposite direction. Remember our gray over here. We'll even darken it down a touch. And so in these crevices once again. Oh, Bethany has to go. Well, thanks for stopping by, and then thanks for kind of jogging my memory there on the T-shirt worthy phrases. So you have a good one, and thanks again. Hope it's not too warm over there. I'm sure it is. So here, I just said the heck with it. I'm just going to glaze it in. On the other side, it worked out where I could just sort of draw that in. But here, you know what? I'm just going to do this. I'm going to grab me some water here. Glaze it and then wipe some of it away. And now I am going to do something like this. I'm going to take that same, go there, mixing a little bit of my gray with it. Getting some more mid-tones here. As we work our, I almost called these leaves again. Somehow I remember, I think it was the Raptorix. There was another thing that had wings, and I kept calling the feathers leaves. It was something like that. And I for the life of me, couldn't understand why the heck I kept calling the feathers leaves. But once again, look at it. That's just a middle tone there. That's all it is. It's just a middle tone. Because remember here, this is the underside of the wings, and the underside of those wings, I just need to leave this closer to me here. Now, it's going to be going up against the tree right here. So that's again his base, and that little rod right there, that is what's going to attach him to the base. Let's do a bit more here. Yeah, let's get some more of this. Again, now we see it's a little bit more reddish, but still there's some of that same grayish color in there. Like I said, you would have to buy 40 different jars of paint to get all the different colors that we've done here with, I don't know, what, 7 colors maybe ish. So do you really need all of those colors? And it's not like I'm saying, well, because this is the underside of the wings on a golden eagle, it needs to be this color. It's just, no, I'm feeling this color or that color. I'm going to make that a bit on the brighter side again. And we're going to work in some of our yellow too, just like we did, say, over in this area. We will do some glazing over this too. A little more. Remember, I also wanted to have some of those darker tips on the feathers. That was kind of neat to have those. So now I'll take, again, some of that pale green. We'll mix it in with our mid-tone there, and we'll see what we get here. Starts to lighten that up, and because these, I almost called them leaves again, because these feathers are larger, I can start to really, I've got some texture going here. The texture lines going one way, and then texture lines going another way. How's about a little more here? And I mentioned those Lord of the Rings armies. Well, I've got a few of them here. First one, oh look, some Rohan. You can recognize that the same flowers and the tufts there that I used on these, and there's that same bark and branch basing. This is an example where I just brushed on the Stino Res. Next up here we got my Easterlings. They were always the historical enemies of my elves. That's the next battle report that I'm hoping to do. And the Morgul Knights in oils. So this is another one of my army painting series right here. And actually, I used those guys in my last battle report. They showed it for the very first time. I had never used the Morgul Knights until the last battle report. And it was interesting. I actually have to find myself some foot troops for them because, well, one of the folks in our gaming group loves to go for the horses and not the guys. And you can understand the temptation for that. So I didn't have any to represent the unhorsed Morgul Knights. So I got to get me some Morgul Knights on foot, it would seem. Now here's look how we're starting to change this. That starts to emerge a little bit. And remember, I have to get something going here because you can really see it when he's up on the base, because the wing is sort of pointed upwards like this. So I have to have something going on here besides just, well, endless sea of the exact same brown. I'm gonna double down here on this. It's even more, quite literally, it's darn near green. Remember what we did on the talons and the feet? That was pretty close to green. So here we'll get some more of this. Like so. And as always, the more you add of the opaque colors to make these lighter, you're going to lose that whole glazing effect. You're gonna start to lose that. That's just the consequence of it. Now this will still be, even though it's lighter, going to be relatively translucent, and it's just not going to cover it quite as much. It has less of the white in it. Less of the white. See, this is what I mean by that dry glaze. Look at how You can do a full-on brush stroke here, but it just doesn't cover the same. And it's basically all part of the plan. That shifting of colors. We went from almost a greenish light now to something that's very distinctly yellow. Trying to use the natural texture of the wings there. So I can only go so far out towards the end of the wings here, I can see. Let's get rid of some of the excess there. I'm going to work my way down into here. I need to, yeah, that needs it there. So with something like this, like we said, it's up to you to kind of provide the entertainment. You're trying to make the viewer, you want to, I don't want to say force them to look at it, but you're kind of forcing them to look at it. Now we can go again with more of our, let's throw a little bit of that, more of the opaque light color in there. Let's see what we can do to liven this up a little more here. Remember, I want to get some darker stuff going on those, so I have to just kind of avoid the temptation to mess around with those. So that's, now you can sort of see that, except it's going to be really difficult for me angle-wise, so I'm going to have to use a different brush to get at it from that angle. Yep, you can still see that. Now, these are, obviously, they're made to still be played after the fact, so that you can see these, and they're essentially tutorials. Like I said, there is an entire playlist now. I believe there are 50 something, either 49 or 50 live sessions that are all in now one place in a playlist, and it doesn't have a fancy name. It's a YouTube live sessions. I mean, it's the most clever name in the history of names, or not. Let's see, I'm gonna see. I want to layer this the same way like I did over here on the face, where we got some of that gray, right? That's back in there. But all of this gets set up here. We're gonna do some lighter colors here. Remember that can be toned down at any point. I just drop a little bit of glaze over it. It's not the end of the world. Or I may just end up liking that as it is. Oh, Black's Cleric, how's it going? Oh, yeah, well, take care, you too. Yeah, this is something that I've been itching to do for months, and I don't know if you've already seen the basing tutorials for the bases that these guys go on, but definitely check those out. Because those were, boy, I had a lot of fun with those. It was messy, I can tell you that. Oh my gosh, there was pieces of branch and bark all over the place. Trying to drill the holes into those two pairs of branches there without trying to snap them off, that wasn't the easiest thing in the world. See how we start to build this up a little bit now, even on each individual feather. Going to get some along the edges of this now. Now the feather on the other side, or feathers on the other side, they won't be as light as this. I'm not going to be getting to those. Who knows, I may even do a second session on this guy or something. Or maybe I don't know, finish him off on the Patreon page or something like that, so I can have a little bit more of a structured video. But what I am going to do is get onto these couple of feathers here. Go back to this more of a reddish color here, so I'm way off to the right hand side here. See at the end of the wing. Working my way towards the very end of the wingtips here. And then, now, let's go back to this. Well, it's called blue-black. It's really more of a bluish-gray sort of a thing. And now we're going to go into some of the recesses of the feathers here. Again, it's very much a glaze at this point. Almost going to use it a little bit like a the panel line wash, the pin line wash. Let some of that work its way into there. As we've got that endless sea of reddish brown. Now we're going to try and shift that away, just like we did on the face. Just like we did on the face, we're going to do that into these feathers here. Obviously, the shape significantly different. Now let's get some of that in here. Right, I'm looking for some of it down on the end of these feathers here. As neat as it would be to have, say, the darker color under here, I'm thinking it could be fun to have that on the ends of the feathers here. Oh, what do we got here? Let's do, again, some separation here. And I'm going to vary things from each foot, but see how that right there on the end of the wing, different. That's what's going to make this more interesting. And because of when you saw it, how it was positioned on the base, yeah, this is essentially kind of a, we're doing that sort of dry glaze thing again now in some parts of this. I'm going to leave that lighter, but this is fun. See, okay, it's darker there, and then all of a sudden the ends of the feathers, not leaves, but feathers are darker. And then we'll do that out here. Oh, let's just grab some. I'm going to get this out of the way so I have some room to maneuver on the palette. We're just using water. That's all it is. It's just water. And I'm going to find some darker areas in here too. I'm going to do a little bit of a glaze into there. That whole notion of back and forth. Maybe glaze it a little bit darker, and then even up in here I might go there and do some more, something that's lighter on the ends of those wings. Just a few little things to indicate texture, basically. I'm just shoving that brush down in there to get these all-important darks into those shadows, but it's a more interesting shadow because it's got a little bit of blue in it. It doesn't just look more interesting, it's going to give you more contrast, because light and dark on its own only going to take you so far. As soon as you start to get, and I talk about all the time, that color difference, right? Cool colors recede, warm colors come forward, which is why if you have some kind of a more of a grayish, bluish brown, the value could be the same. So, well, let's do a little game here with our Zoink color intensity. So it's now black and white. We took away all the color, but you can see the face there, the talons, the wings still have shape, right? And as we bring our color intensity back, like you do, well, then you get treated to all those different colors. Yay, that's nice. I'm going to go back to this black. And because we got a little bit of that bluish gray black in there, by default, that cools it down in addition to making it darker. And I try to do that little exercise right there where I get rid of the saturation. It's why when I do either my live classes or live appearances or whatever live, I try to use that special camera that I got. Worked really well at ReaperCon, GameholeCon. Oh, and I guess now I'll be doing the guest of honor, one of the guest honors at Little Wars this year in April. It's at the old Adepticon Hotel, which is in Lombard, which is very ironic. But that's all about historicals, and I will certainly have my camera set up there, and that should be really fun. So again, you can see where we've got that. It's not just darker, it's got some more blues in there. You can start to see the ends of these feathers. Here, let's just pop these over here real quick. Again, I'm going to grab me some more of that transparent black. We'll just, boom, we'll hit the ends of these. Also, in the face, yeah, I need to get a little bit of contrast in there. I need to get some of that bluish gray down into the recesses of right here. In you go. Now we'll kind of move that around a little bit. I can wipe that away if I need to. Now let's see what we can do over here. Similar to what we did on the other side. Boy, I'm glad I never used the autofocus on this thing, because can you imagine with the wings on this thing? Man, it'd be driving the autofocus berserk. Absolutely berserk. Now we're going to do something similar like we did to the other side. We'll get some areas lighter here, and then we're going to hit it with that same sort of a glaze like we did. That is why I don't really care what's happening right here. I just need to get some of these individual feathers somewhat lighter. But before we get too much into the red, I'm going back into the yellow again. Like I've done up here on the wings there. And the idea is we just sort of build this up and then hit it with that glaze again. And all the while, just, okay, yeah, I've gone with the yellow for a while now. And right here, you can see that's where the pin's going to go. So in all likelihood, there's going to be a bunch of foliage around here anyways. So almost the less of this detail here, the better. Because if we have all kinds of detail around it, it's just going to draw the eye towards it, and that's sort of the last thing we want. Going to take some of my, again, that is some of that pale green. Oh, mix it with some of the Burnt sienna, again, another fun little skin tone type of thing going on. Oh, let's see if I can't put a little bit of, yeah, lighter feather texture on there. Now that I've got some darks in that area, I'm going to go back into here now. And it's going to us, just the nature of the beast. It's going to maybe wander off screen or whatever, or you'll just have a big old wingtip sticking right in your eye. And I apologize for that. That's why I'm not moving this around as much as I normally do with a figure. Trying to be sort of anchored in one spot here. Because the more this thing flies around, no pun intended, tougher it's going to be for you to see what's going on. So what are we at here? We are basically an hour and 45-ish minutes maybe. And this had zero paint on it whatsoever. And we spent time looking at other Lord of the Rings stuff. Spent time talking about the paints. And again, these are the ProAcryl transparent paints with a few like this pale green here, some of the lighter opaques. Looking to get me some more lights on the end here before we hit it with that same glaze. A lot of similar to what we did here, but see now that that's dry. That's another thing too about the, well, it's common through all the Creature Caster, the ProAcryl paints, is that they dry super matte. That's what they do. They're designed for that. Okay, now a glaze in here. Once again. And it basically looks like I'm obliterating it with this bluish gray. But we will remove this just like we did on the other side. Just like we did on the other side. So there it is. Sponge. And I can use my finger to take some away. So that leaves some of that behind. Actually, now I'm going to go the other route here. I'm going to take some of my brighter yellow. See that over there on the palette there? Yeah, letting that mix with the other colors there. Now we'll try and pick out a few feathers, especially down towards the end of his legs here, closer to the talons, his feet, whatever. We'll vary it. Now I'm back to more of that skin color again. This is what I mean. So that classic working back and forth. Start out in the middle, work your way lighter, then boom, hit it darker again. But you can see it was more than just making it darker for the sake of darker. Did we make it a dark brown? No. We actually made it more of a dark gray. All for the sake of just adding some interest to this. Because I can't emphasize it enough how potentially uninteresting it could be to look at when it's just an endless sea of browns. Or, well, basically the same brown. I'm thinking some of the old GW browns, like the scorched brown or whatever. I mean, eventually people just start to recognize. It's almost like using cork for basing. That same type of cork. When people say, oh, look, a scorched brown eagle. Or with a few bestial brown highlights or something. you throw them some curveballs with a little bit of greenish gray, then now they actually have to look at it. So what the heck, I might, I'm actually taking some of that gray, mixing it with that, basically almost like a skin tone. And in here, pick out a few things. Remember, because the wing is tilted towards me here. It's tilted towards me. I've got to get some more light than, say, the other side's going to have, because that's pretty much facing right down towards the ground. All right, can you see? Yeah, you can still see it. Oh, look at that. I can see the ends of the feathers of this wing on the palette cam there. As it would just go catching that bottom edge there. And now I'm going to go back over to my more yellowish color here. Pardon me while the palette camera gets in the way again. Like so. How's about a little more? Couple of, yeah, that's too bright. I'll just take some of it away. Couple of more on the ends of that. Oh, what the heck? I might even let a little bit of the yellow work its way over here too. Let's get the center spine of these feathers now. But they've got to be, I just don't want those to really stand out too much. So I'm going to change my angle here. Change my angle so I can get some nice, this is a liner brush that I'm using here. That's what lets me, I mean, it's for more than just drawing lines, but it's designed to hold a decent amount of paint. Let me do a long stroke like that. All the while remembering that if this was facing a different way, if it was just kind of facing a flat thing like this and not like this, I would not be putting as much light on these as I am now. That's why the other side is going to be, I don't want to say significantly darker. It's just not going to be as light as this side is. Even on these small feathers. Now at this point, because of what I've developed everywhere else, I can start to think about developing some texture on those. Again, looking for some of the spines on these feathers here. So we've used basically, effectively, look, I just absentmindedly just took the green and threw that into the yellow there. It's going to give me an interesting, yeah, see, it's another new color. I'm hoping that you do this often enough that you don't have to, well, you really don't want to be overthinking it anyways. And that is another thing that I see people do all the time, is they massively overthink stuff, just to the point of paralysis. And think long, think wrong. That's another thing. That's another chapter in the book of Wappel right there. When you overthink things, without a doubt, you'll just convince yourself, it's just not going to work. It's too dangerous. It's not going to work. When it probably could have, actually. But you sort of convince yourself that there's no way that can work. So then you don't try it. It becomes sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Let's see. Oh yeah, you can't take the journey of discovery if you never get on the boat. That's one of my... Actually, I've got that on a sticker right now. Same stickers that I forgot to bring to ReaperCon, which, well, at least now I have them for Adepticon. So see, now we can start to bring out some of those feathers too. And go back over here to that sort of green-yellow mix. Hit some more of these guys. Perhaps even these feathers, because remember the angle these are at will catch some light. So will these. We've got a lot of yellow there, so this now it just has a little more of a greenish tinge to it. So all of these get brought out. Now, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do here? Let's see what happens. We're going to take some of that green. We'll mix it with that blue-gray. I think you'll be able to see what's going to happen here. Look at this. So even though it's supposed to be darker there, we still want to look at the difference between, say, that feather there, that one there. It's super subtle, not a whole lot of difference, but there is a difference. There is a difference there, and it will, like I said, going to increase that visual interest. And this is weird because that's going to come forward, and you say, well, the warm colors always come forward. Well, here we've sort of turned that on its head, and now the cooler colors are going to come forward. There we are. So that's a much more interesting looking feather instead of one that's just various shades of only brown. More going on there. A lot more going on there. Now I'm going to see if I can... I'm going to try and interrupt some of these leaves. I finally called them leaves. There we go. You think it long enough, it's going to happen. So here's my transparent black over here. Once again, looking for a little bit of there, right along here. And then these little sort of notches in the feathers, right? There's a whole bunch of these. I'm going to try and bring some of those back. I don't want you to think of it as blacklining because we're only doing it in a couple of places. We're not doing it everywhere. It's not an outline. Don't want you to think of it as an outline. Here's some more. Yeah, look at this. We're going to go down into that crevice there. Oh, there's Waleed. How you doing? Now, hopefully, we'll be able to... I know Rich tried calling today. I was confused because the phone decided to use a different sound for my ringer instead of the ringing sound. So hopefully, maybe we can do some more Lord of the Rings this week. Actually, I have been working real hard on the battle reports. I think I had 45 or 50 pictures from the game, and I worked up some screens. I think I've got them pretty much good to go, and I'm going to try and do that technique we talked about. And short-lived. Hello, how's it going? It's got to be, oh geez, what is it, 4 o'clock here? Was it 6 p.m.-ish in, say, Melbourne? That's going to be my guess. And I'm going to guess that it's probably in the 90s, or at least around, well, what, 40 degrees Celsius probably. So we work these grays down into the shadow areas here. So yeah, that Wally was one of the participants in that game that I've been talking about the entire stream here, the one that I'm going to turn into the first battle report using the still pictures, using the little telestrator thing. Almost tempted to try and bring that up now, because it basically lets me draw on the screen. It's something that I might use for, I don't know, maybe, I don't want to say critiques, but as taking some painted miniatures and talking about those. Alright, so let's show you what we've got here on this wing. And then that's what it started as. This whole wing here, I don't know, 30 minutes-ish, something like that. We've been playing around with this. But you can see there's yellows in there, there's reds, there's some grayish blues, all kinds of fun stuff. Oh, Walled's going to head out to Colorado, but be back and ready with a new army. Yeah, that's definitely, you're practicing, you need Iron Hills, right? Practice, I'm assuming, for Adepticon. So just let me know. And well, I mean, obviously the Easterlings, they can go up against those. I'm going to have to probably do a combination of canned and Harad, because Candish Army has practically no choices in it. There's no named characters at all. So to get any sort of flavor other than like 20 chariots, well, I'll try and throw some Harad in there too. Okay, so actually that it'd be really fun. I know it made a big difference, and well, you're talking about the format there of the Bilbo's Bash. Well, geez, Rich and I think we played 5 or 6 practice games before that. So there is clearly some value in that. Alright, I'm going to throw in some more lights here. Also, short-lived says close 9:20 p.m. It was warmer here in Melbourne. Ah, the storms. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the kind words, and for watching too. I know we're starting to get more and more questions. People saying, so are you going to do a teaching any classes down in Australia? And it would really be nifty. I don't know. There's so many logistical things there, not just getting us down there, but the paraphernalia that we would need. I think there's folks that would just let us stay at their houses, which is that takes care of that part, but getting around once we're down there, so it would be really nifty, but I have zero time for working on those kind of projects. Someone else would have to take over the task of figuring out all those logistics, because I'm going to be busy making painting videos. Oh, while Lead is working on an orc army for, oh yeah. Now is it Baranin orcs, Urukai? I think it was Urukai, wasn't it? Because we actually have, much to our surprise, a bunch of painted Urukai that Kathy did way back in the day. I mean, super simple on the paint job, nothing, just some metallics and some washes and glazes, nothing super fancy, but well, at least they're painted. So she's gonna be the orc player then. Well, we have I think Rich has played orcs in some of your games, hasn't he? Well, or at least, no, not goblins. Yeah, I think they've tried to make the orcs have a little bit more variety now, I think. So you can see this is almost, Jesus, straight up kind of a light green here. Now let's go back down to his leg over here, see if we can't get some of that same stuff going on here in these feathers too. So I've got these two eagles. I'll have to look and see what just regular eagles are. I would probably want to get a third one or something to be here, because he was, well, I don't know. He was in my Bilbo's Bash army, so there's a certain amount of, what would you say, nostalgia for that. Let's go. I'm going to try and turn this on its head here. We're going to take some of this. That's the sienna. And I'm going to try and get that right in. Yeah. So we've been trying to add accents that are more, say, that grayish color. Throw it on its head here. And we're going to do actually some warmer glazes. Can you see? I think you can see that. I'm just going to get that wing out of the way. Then maybe you can see it. How's about another little bit of a glaze here. Wipe some away. Let some of that stay. What do we want to do here? What do we want to do here? I think I'm going to get some more reflected light. And this is that crazy turquoise that I made down over here. So on the talons here, we're going to see if we can't get some reflected. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. And just like I was saying before, I'm tempted to use something like a water effects essentially to maybe make these, give it that glossy look, and the highlights, that kind of shiny sparkly highlight thing. I don't remember if I did that on the original eagle over there. I'd have to find some of the original photos for that. Now I am gonna see, look at that. Okay, so I'm trying to put some texture into that feather instead of just a darker brown. That's where I'm using that same greenish gray right next to some of the yellow there. I mean, I know it seems crazy, but when you see this, your eye just registers that as different shades of brown, but there's actually a lot of greenish gray in there. Speaking of green, here we're going to go back to our greenish color here on the talons. Just try and smooth this area out a bit, or just extend the transition. Oh, where are we at here? Is even more of that. And it's just that bluish gray. It's mixed with the yellow. Yeah, it was a little, there was just kind of no transition there. There was just all of a sudden a ball of the brighter yellow, which I'm looking at how dark the color actually is that I'm putting here. When you look at it on the palette, that's why I try and have that palette cam for you and try not to cover it up with, say, a bird wing. Ah, there. Okay, that certainly needed that. I'm just going to, a little bit of the yellow there. Now, I'm going to see if I can grab some of this yellow here. We'll put this on this is going to be some of the lighter areas on the feet. You may not really be able to see what I'm doing here. It's the angle I've got to hold it at so that I can see it and actually reach it. But I'm just putting little brighter dots of yellow there. And it's just funny, not long ago, I don't know, an hour and a half ago, those feet were essentially just, well, gray, like a bluish gray. That's all they were. And then we were able to work in a bunch more. Now I'm just going to real quick show you the back side of the bird. I guess that really is giving you the bird there. Or a bird's eye view. I've got a million of them. Try the veal. I'm going to get a touch of lighter highlights here. All you can really see his face. Right there. Looking to get some right in here. Now this is a little bit more straight up yellow, obviously, than everywhere else on the feet. Now what about on the sides over there? Got to do something with that. So we'll hit that over here. Just going to get some water into that, and it still has enough of the transparent yellow into that. But we've got enough of the opaque so that it actually covers, but not as much as it would if it was just a straight up opaque colors. So let's do some things in here. Now I'm going to just bear with me here. I'm going to throw out a little bit of more of my black. It's transparent black again from ProAcryl right there. Going to get me something to drink here. Just give me a second. Now let's do some darker things on this side, sort of like what we were doing over here. So we got grays and yellows and tans and reds. Let's do that. Let's get some of that working over here. I think first I'm going to, let's get some of that, almost a bit of a glaze of it here. Boom. Oh, let's, just while I see it there, I'm going to hit those, and then in here too. Finger painting time. That was mentioned already earlier tonight. It was Tim and Nestor talked about finger painting, and that is actually something I have people do during my classes. I have them paint with their fingers, quite literally. You see how fun it is? Yes, I could use makeup sponges, but why use sponges when you got fingers? That's potentially another t-shirt worthy phrase. My goodness, it's just, there's a million of them tonight. Just don't mind me while I get a little bit of darker stuff going on there. Okay, boom. Good enough. Now, let's go back to what we had done before. So that's that sienna color again. Hopefully I haven't shoved my palette out of the cam. Yeah, there we go. It's still right where it belongs. All right. And now that we've put in that little bit of dark, see what we can do here. Look at the impact that has. Probably no different as far as light and dark wise than what used to be there. But now you've got a cooler, darker color underneath. We got a warmer, lighter color over the top. But we're not going to do that equally everywhere. And now we're going to change. We got some yellow over here. Got some yellow over here. And that's going to work its way in here too. Some more. Again, that changing. So we've done the yellow. Now what we're going to do is actually, we're going to go crazy here. We're going to take some of this. It's going to be almost like a grayish red, if there is such a thing. But it's going to go right there. So it's many different colors on these feathers, but is it really taking all that long to get this much variety? It sure as heck would. Well, and it'd be pretty darn expensive if you had to buy every single one of these colors of browns that we're making with just a couple of colors. We got red-ish brown, we got yellow, we have some off-whites, and that's all we're doing. Look at all these, look at all this different browns over here. The miniatures are expensive enough. Got these eagles here. What if this is the only thing I really need this much brown for? I buy a million different jars of brown paint, then I don't have any more eagles to paint. I could have bought a whole bunch more miniatures and just saved on the paint. This is when people say, well, I don't want to have to learn to mix. It's easier. Well, okay. It's easier. Also way more expensive. When you look at my blog, or heck, even on just now Instagram, that's why I got that follow me on Instagram. You look at some of the things there, you're looking at stuff that was done with 6, 7, 8 colors. I mean, maybe on the high side, 9 or 10. There's some people that will grab 9 jars of red just to highlight a blood angel or something. Which after a while you start to say, that's an awful lot of colors of red. And how many other projects are you using those on? What if you could just take a couple of reds, or some red, some blue, whatever, and just do some mixing there and be able to make your own whatever you needed? That would be handy. So now, again, the yellow, I mean, it puts the transparent in transparent, that's for sure. It is really transparent. Now we're going to go back to, so we got our grayish green over here, mixing that with the red. That's good. If I can just, there, I had to get around the feet. But it's look at this, we used green and red together. What did green and red make? They make brown. So again, not something that you necessarily have to spend a whole bunch of money buying a whole bunch of different colors. And you can make some real nifty ones. And no color wheel needed either. Man, I really hate color wheels. I wish that never existed. It was useless in art school, and it's equally as useless with miniatures and pretty much everything else. Wheels are good on cars and gears and trains and other things like that. Not with paints. Or colors, for that matter. So look at all the different stuff we got there, the same as on the other side. You can see even more of the bluish gray on the other side. So, boy, we must really be having some temperature dropping outside, because I'm starting to feel that here as I try to get a little bit of reflected light onto the face. Just bear with me here while I hit these talons real quick, the underside of these things. I'm just at the right angle to do that here. I know it's not the most interesting thing to see. And now I'm going to use some of that right here. And this is, that's a color I'm using on the feathers that I was just using on his talons to put reflected light, but now it's going into his feathers. Color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere. There's your first chapter in the Book of Wappel. And those that know what that means, they've heard that before. Especially a lot of my patron videos. So let's try and do some of what we did there. Let's have some of it come out here. But I'm going to do something a little bit different than what we did on the other side. These feathers are sculpted a little bit differently. And remember, this is going to be facing towards the ground. We wanted this darker anyways. Oh, and this chamois sponge right here, see this? I got my finger on. That's what's sitting under here underneath the parchment paper. So just in case you're wondering, this is a homemade wet palette made basically from a Chinese food container, which means it was very tasty as I ate it, and now it's helping me an awful lot in its second life as a wet palette. So as I got my craft brush again, we're going filbert style again, and we're just gonna drop in some lighter tones here. We're also going to make sure we get some of that gray color. There's an awful lot of green that's going into these wings. Green is the new brown. At least on this eagle it is. And I'll show you in a second. You'll say, what in the world is going on here? Why are you doing that? Well, here's my base. And basically right there is your joint. So you can see how he's pointed towards the ground, which, oh look, has a lot of green on it, yes. So these bases, these were made as Patreon videos. I got 2 of these bases, but there's, you can see how he's sort of facing right down towards the ground there where that shield is and the skulls and everything. So this is one of 2 great eagles that I was working on. Second one, in all likelihood, I'll just do that for the Patreon page. I'd like to be able to do it in oils, but as you can see, I have to hold on to the wings, and that's kind of an issue. So the original plan of maybe doing those in oils probably not going to happen. I thought I could do maybe 1 in acrylics, 1 in oils, and you could see the difference. Look at this. I'm just mixing. This is a bunch of different colors that I had in there together. We're just mixing them together. We're using a big old brush here. Big old brush. Working in that filbert style. It's perfect for these larger feathers especially. Can you still see? Ah, okay. If I turn it this way, I think you can see a little bit more of it. I want you to see as much of the rest of the wings and body as possible, so you get to see the context of it. So you can see what we did. Look at the difference. See there where it's yellow, it almost goes into a bluish gray there on the end of the wings, because that's what we're doing. And remember, I gotta think about this, not just darker, but cooler, more grayed down. Heck, with a fair amount of green in it, because that wing is going to be that close to all of that greenery. And that's also not a place where we want a super amount of contrast, because we want to be focusing in on that. And that was earlier. We did the face there, so you can always, again, go back to the beginning and watch these things. They are, yeah, it's me hanging out and talking to people, like I was talking to Bethany and Waleed and Short-Lived, some of our Australian friends, and we just always want to wish you guys the best. I mean, if it was easier for me to get over there, I'd be over there all the time. And yes, at some point I'll be able to see a footy match in person. I mean, yeah, it would be neat to go to a Bulldogs game, but, maybe an Anzac Day. game. That could be fun. So like I did over here, so we're starting to work in. But I'm just taking the colors that I already have over here. Got my filbert brush again. Look at this. We had that green to start with, yes. What's starting to happen now? Starting to go over the top of that here, like so. Yeah, look at that. Then we can pick up some of the wing texture. Then we take the smaller brushes and then we go in. But this is that layering. It's that instead of, okay, progressively lighter browns, I went from almost a reddish brown to practically something that was a greenish gray. And now we're darn near at yellow over the top of it. And oh, look, see, now we're using the brush like that instead of like that. That's the nifty part of a filbert brush. And this is the same 35-cent craft brush. Heck, I'm sure I was using this brush to apply crushed glass snow probably yesterday or the day before. And now we're painting with it because that's just what you do. Well, if you're me. Let's go with some more here. Yeah, this is back to our greenish gray, but now a tad lighter. Why does this stand out? Stands out because sitting underneath it is sort of that reddish brown, that burnt sienna mixed in with a little bit of the transparent brown. So see a nice variety, just like what we have here. Obviously there we had the finer brush going. Well, we can do that here too, but we're not doing that now. We've got to settle in some of these. Figure out what they're basically what's the gist of the color we're doing. How far do we want to take the highlights over here? There's strategery involved. And it's like we're playing a game of Lord of the Rings and we got to decide, oh, heroic march, save it for a heroic fight later. Oh geez, we haven't gotten priority in 4 turns. Now we're dead. That can happen in painting too. So again, just being as much variety as I can get into these wings. Now I'm just going to change my angle of attack here. And I'm going to change my angle of color as I go. See, now we're making it more of a reddish type of a deal here. And poof. Like so. Look at that. We're starting to bring out some texture. Not a dry brush. Look at that. Completely covers. But look, we got a relaxed handle on the brush here. Not death grip in the metal ferrule. We're just leaving that be. Like so here. Yeah, trying to take advantage. Look at it, I'm just holding it like this. It's a gentle hold on that brush. Nice and gentle. Let's use a little bit of orange here to lighten that up. But I still got some of my opaque color there. Oh, have I been before? No, I have not. What is it? Anzac Day is usually the pies and the bombers, I believe. Geez, we've only seen probably 8 of them. Advance Australia Fair. It's really usually, I'm assuming it's got to be at MCG. I'm just hoping that the Bulldogs can maybe get back to more of a 2016-ish form. And I mean, last year wasn't horrible. They somehow went from about, well, let's say they were neighbors to Carleton on the ladder, and they ended up somehow getting into the 8. was it about 8 years ago? Oh no, geez. Now it's more like 11 or 12 years ago that we first saw some of our first footy matches, and well, Kathy, she chose St. Kilda, and I sadly chose. I was right. Okay, there we go. I chose the Bulldogs, not realizing that, well, until 2016, they hadn't won a darn thing since 1959. No, yeah, no, 1950. Which kind of, I suppose it's appropriate because until 2005, the White Sox also hadn't won anything since 1959. But look at the temperature difference here. Look at this. Reddish orange here. It's going darn near green over here. We got some yellow over here. We practically got a blue. What are your three primary colors? Red, yellow, blue. And they're all working their way into these wings. Here's the other advantage of this type of brush. Now that's what's going to happen. I'm going to set this on its side here. Look at that. Look at the green. Remember I put that down there, and now we've put some reddish brown over the top. Then over the top of that is more of an orangey yellow brown, but it's like the brush of many shapes here. The brush of many shapes. I'm going to go even a little more yellow. Now I'm going to actually throw just a tad touch of the... Look at how different that is. What are we going to get here? We're going to take away some more of that, and you can see just how wet that is. So again, not a dry brush, but we're introducing yet another color of brown here. Why am I getting that yellow in there? Because look what we got on the face. Can't just have it here and then nowhere else on this guy. Okay, let's see if we can't work some right into this set of wings. For here too. Yeah. Look at that now. See that green color, it starts to settle into the background because what? The cool color recedes, the warm color comes forward. It's not necessarily light or dark as basically as the primary form of contrast. So we got look at all these different colors on here. We're going to do our little trick here again. We are going to go and turn that black and white. So we see we still got shape. We got light and dark. Look at even the face all has light and dark. Going to bring back the color again. We bring it back. I'm just going to even more. Look at how much of the yellow is in there. So as I bring it back to a more normal amount. I really enjoy doing that. That is just so much fun. Here, let's get rid of some of the excess there. Rid of some of the excess and put some more here. We're going to go onto the leading edge of this wing and this wing. And don't mind me while I try and bring back the chat there. Oh yeah, well it's my favorite thing. It is my absolute favorite thing. And that's why I love the Hover 8 cam that I'm going to be using for my classes at Adepticon, and, well, that I use at conventions when I do my live appearances. Because it's just, people really get to see that different form of contrast. I know at ReaperCon we used it for basically spontaneous critiques. So people they'd take their miniature up there and we'd kill all the saturation like that. And then you could immediately see, well, instead of just saying, get more contrast, right? What is the 200,000 times out of 10, what does a person given a critique say? Oh, more contrast, or step it up, or make it pop. There's nothing that illustrates that better than just that quick little thing. I turned down the saturation. How difficult is that? Not that difficult. What do we got going here? We're going to take some of our yellow. We're going to get a little bit further down. A little further down. Then we're going to take some green here. Going to see if I can't get a few of these spines of the feathers. Okay. Colors of a feather flock together. Yeah, that's what happens when it gets this late. And by late, I mean 4:55 a.m. where I am at. Okay, working up those spines of those feathers. So you can see we did something very different here versus here because of what this is basically pointed at. So let's get some of that gray in here. So we just dingied up that little color right there. Let's work in some more feather texture. But you can still see some of that original kind of bluish gray, which we're going to see if we can accentuate something else here. So we went here, we kind of put the warm on top of the cool, right? Well, here we're going to put some of the cool color on top of the warm. Where'd you go? Ah, here you are. Yeah, well, I guess that's the other thing that happens when it gets to be this late. You just start talking to your paint colors, although Kathy does that all the time, and that's in the middle of the day. How's about a bit more here? A bit more here. Oh, I'm gonna do some, you know what, let's go the other way. We got our transparent black here still, so we're gonna take some of the gray, just thinning it down with water. That's all it is. No mediums, nothing fancy. Now what we did over here, let's play over here. Let's just play. What we're going to do is darken down the ends of some of these feathers here. And I'm going to push some of this around. So I basically kind of laid out the color there, almost like I just transported some of my palette onto this. Now we're going to push that around, grabbing some water. Doing some little bit of finger painting because fingers. You got them, might as well use them. Otherwise, what are they good for? Now, we're gonna, like we did on the other side, we're gonna take some of our darker mix here that's cool. Just get it out on the ends of these feathers. It's about establishing that context again. So here, we're gonna march right down the line here. And then we'll get some of this. So again, we just drop the paint there, and then we're going to take some water here. Right down in there. Now, these feathers are structured very differently than these. It's the way these are structured kind of lets me do that. Sometimes you just have to follow the sculpt, or go where the sculpt takes you, I guess. I mean, we all want to sort of force the sculpt in the direction we want it to go. Sometimes you're better off kind of going the opposite way. Oh, and remember all the stuff that we're doing here, this is facing towards the ground. So there's the whole idea that not a whole lot of folks are going to see this, really. Especially this part that's pointed especially towards the ground. So we're darkening some things up here, just doing some quickie little glazes here. Just forcing that down into those crevices. I don't want to lose all of the nifty warmer browns, but I think now it's starting to match our other wing over there. But again, we have a whole host of grays and browns and other things at work here. Let's get some of this here yellow to that red. And now I can start to reinvigorate that warmer tone. Let's get some of this lighter stuff here. I'm going to take a touch of that. Look at that, what a little bit of that white does in there. Well, that's actually bright ivory. Not really a white per se. Well, watch what happens here as we... I said, Jim, what was the deal with all that black? Well, we were just trying to set up something like this. See what we can do here. Oh, good, it is on screen. For a second there, somehow I thought it had wandered off screen. I'm gonna... Oh, what the heck. I'm just gonna do it. I just threw a little bit more. Made that a touch lighter. Just a bit lighter. Looking to get some of these. Yep. Needed to hit some stuff here. Again, it's all about the context, but remember, so look what we got here on this face. And now, because this is sort of at, we're going to be seeing that this is going to be facing the ground. See where all this green stuff is here? This is going to be towards the viewer, just like that. Just like that is, and you can see we got a lot of the same yellows and oranges. What do we got on the wing there? Yellows and oranges. I'm glad I didn't say apples and oranges. But I am now going to throw a few quickie little texture things out here. Again, looking for impressions of that feather texture, those fine... Oh gosh, what would you even... I'm not really... ornithologist, I believe, is the study of birds, right? Yeah, ornithology, not really my thing. Although I do remember as a kid taking, who was the famous artist that did all of the paintings of birds. I remember trying to replicate some of those when I was a kid. That wasn't easy. And just like we did on the other side, I'm going to let that get a bit dark. And it's hilarious because we've gotten this so dark, this barely middle tone color starts to look super light all of a sudden. So yeah, it's context. It's all about context. Here's a bit more. So again, what we did over here, now that starts to happen over here, and you can see it. Yeah, we'll have to do this on the back of the wings too. I'm gonna grab some of my gray color here, and that's the ProAcryl blue-gray. No, blue-black. Sorry. So much like a Payne's gray. And if you check out any of my oil painting lessons, you'll really see the Payne's gray in action. And I did do one. There's going to be a second Lord of the Rings army painting series done in oils. The first one was the Morgul Knights. It really was neat to actually get to play with those. Realizing that there's been 10 army painting series, no, 11 army painting series on the Patreon page since I last did those guys in oils. I think it was, aside from bolt action figures, they were the very first sort of fantasy style figures that I ever did in oils. So look at this. We're taking that same, just like we did here, on the ends of those feathers. And look what that gives. See how there's more turn there now because it's not just a light versus dark thing. Once again, as we do our little trick of the zoom, take out that color intensity. So here, yeah, you have shading, but here's that next level of contrast where you also introduce the color temperature. And like I said, there's nothing like some blues and greens and grays on brown wings to make them look a little bit more realistic. I know that sounds crazy, but having done enough of this in 2D, let's see. Oh, I missed a whole bunch of the chat. Sorry about that. So Waleed says, "Oh yeah, the black and white thing, and then short-lived." Is it late night or early morning? This is 5 a.m. in the morning now. Well, 5:03, 5:06 in the morning. There's a couple of reasons I do it at this time because, well, my wife Kathy, she does her Twitch streams from our time, 3 in the afternoon till 5 at night. So, and there's barely enough bandwidth to do one of these at a time, much less both of us. And she is not a night person, and was never ever a morning person. So it works out okay in that respect. It's also a time here in this area when just overall bandwidth usage throughout the entire area is less. So what I'm going to do here is tone that down just a little bit. See, I like to go just back and forth. Here, let's shoot in a little bit of a darker color there and can't wipe it away with our fingers. That's what they're there for. That is specifically why evolution happened, so that you can do stuff like this. It took billions of years of evolving from single-celled organisms to have fingers so that you can manipulate your glazes. It's the genius of the universe. How's about, something like this here? Tail feathers. Like you do. Gonna go with, you can see I'm just gonna scrubbing this together here. A little bit of scrub action. Back to that filbert shape once again. And then we lighten here. Yeah, well, that's, I don't want to grab my phone, but I always like to show the 3 time zones that I have. One obviously for Chicago, a second one for London, and the most important one, of course, is Australia, and it's Melbourne for the 3rd time zone. And when I saw that if I stream at this time, well, it's basically breakfast in Europe and supper in Australia, at least when I'm starting, that wasn't a bad idea. Well, that's the other thing too, is that, well, obviously there's not a whole lot of American painters that are streaming at this time, so you kind of have that benefit. Now we're back into the yellow here a little bit. Just don't mind me as I cast a little bit of that here into this part of our great eagle. Yeah, now actually, is it, well, Locky, right? The Zorpa Zorp. No, I know he just did, I think it was maybe a painting video, it was another unboxing video. I don't know if he ever showed the finished results of Arda Unleashed, because I He did the first round. He did the team tournament also. But I don't remember seeing the rest of Arda Unleashed, or at least the final result with Kaylee and, oh gosh, who was the other? Actually, the other person was a new person to the final round there. But I guess she's the world champion at Lord of the Rings, at least tournament wise. Now we are going to go back in here and do some little glazy type tricks. That's another highly technical painting term, glazy type tricks. Right over here, and you say, what is the world? What's going on with that? That's not right. What we did is we put it exactly where we wanted it, because we're going to take some of this convenient water. We're going to create ourselves some quickie transitions. Now we're going to take some. I could just get out some transparent brown, but I said, the heck with it. I'm just going to take me some of this transparent black and some of the burnt sienna, and we're just going to go in here, reclaim some darks, and then we're going to wipe that away. Again, fingers, you got them for a reason. Let's do our little thing here. We'll get our, yeah, that's almost kind of a greenish color there. That's what we used here, kind of on the feet. Oh, well, there's at least one. That's I've only gotten into the Lord of the Rings gaming and found it. Oh, from the Army of the Dead. Yes, that is, well, actually, Waleed he played Army of the Dead in our last little battle there. That's the battle report that I'm working on now. And I've got the king and the heralds, and I want to paint those, at least one of them on a live session like this. And that whole object source lighting thing, that sort of combination of the corrosion of the armor, but yet the ethereal glow. Oh boy, and Waleed, those first pieces of terrain came in, the one I was telling you about, the 3D printed stuff, and those, wow, they don't require a whole lot of extra work, and they're solid, they're very light, unlike those massive resin pieces that weigh 1,000 pounds. And I do believe there will be some more of those on the way here. So we'll be able to have like a whole ruins of Arnor, well, basically enter Gondor City here ruins, pretty much. Could still even function as Osgiliath. Yeah, I hope that the marble effect was fun for you. I just can't get enough of marble bases. They're so much fun. And for not really being all that difficult, the return that you get just in additional interest on the figures and then the story that tells, it's definitely worth it. I'd try and break out some of my Lord of the Rings figures here, but they're all still packed away from the last time that Waleed and Rich and I were playing. I'll let that dry for a second here. Let's see, these my there's the Rohan army that I'm working on to try and have my first good army. Also, I've done lendings now, and then of course Waleed's seen these many times. The Easterlings, yes, Dragon Knight, Amdur, and there's the Morgul Knights coming up right there. So those again done in oils. There's the oil brushers, and you can see as I scroll down here. Yeah, that was just really fun. I really had a blast doing those. Oh, what the heck. I'm going to go more towards the yellow again here, but kind of toned down a bit with the green. Okay. Grab this guy over here. Give you a little spin, and now let's get some more specifically drawn. There we go. Follow the texture here of the feathers, but there's a fair amount of water in the brush, which is good because it helps keep those somewhat toned down and in check. I don't think I'm going to do too much here on the tail because, well, you're kind of getting blocked by the feet. So I just realized that I can't always see everything. Oh, thanks very much. Appreciate that. And Harad is, oh gosh, I think even that figure is tucked away. That's the Army Painting series that I've got going right now. I'll be filming yet another episode of that. Probably this time tomorrow. And then my Candish guys, take a look on the blog if you haven't seen what the old Candish army looked like. I've got to actually basically scratch build a bunch of chariots for myself. And I'm actually converting some Rohan into Royal Guards. So I'm going to take some of just the standard cavalry figures. We're going to take some green stuff. And we are going to give them some bigger robes, give them some banners, some head crests. And just for Erkenbrand. Actually, that was, I think you might have seen that live session, the one on Erkenbrand. That was a lot of fun, a lot of freehand there. So that is not too shabby there for, well, basically around 3 hours. So what I'm going to do here is actually, I'm going to go catch me some shut-eye, but thanks to everybody for keeping me company. Thanks to Waleed and Short-Lived and Bethany. Thanks again for showing up. Much appreciated. But do the subscribe thing, and hopefully you get the notifications. So there's his eye, his face there. We got our talons and everything, and he goes on this base right there. So something along the lines like that. But thanks again, everybody, for watching, and I will catch you the next time. Oh, hey, Evil Elvis. Sorry to say hi and bye.